following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Seconds. Call to order the July 28th meeting of the Cary Town Council, and at this time I'll recognize Councilmember Bush for our ceremonial opening.
Thank you, Mayor. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we continue, you might notice there are 6 council members instead of 7 up here. Councilmember Robinson has been called away on work issues, and so she is out of town and will not be with us this evening. So before we get started, we need to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And we are now at our first recognition, proclaiming and honoring Kenneth Cottle's retirement. And I'll invite Kenneth to the podium for a special presentation.
Don't go. Don't do it. Don't do it. You can still leave. Run.
This is the fun part of the mayor's job. We're commending a retirement of Kenneth Cottle today, and I'm going to read this proclamation, which is going to be pretty long because he's done a lot in his career here at Cary, and he's so young to be retiring. So I don't get that, but okay. But anyway, commending Kenneth Cottle for his devoted service to the town of Cary. Whereas Kenneth was hired on June 1st, 1987. That's before Jack got here. That's pretty amazing. As a firefighter for the town of Cary, and when Cary only had 4 fire stations serving a population of an 80,000. We have 180,000 now. So, whereas Kenneth was quickly promoted to fire inspector and then worked his way through the ranks to be promoted to deputy fire marshal on August 9th, 2006. And whereas Kenneth's high standards for professionalism, ethics, honesty, and uncompromising integrity helped build him as a premier inspector and code enforcement person with the fire department that was a model for other departments to follow. And whereas Kenneth made a long-lasting contribution to this community in his 27 years with the fire department through his knowledge, thoughtful, creative, customer service-oriented code enforcement duties, and ensured all commercial buildings were safe for all occupants by meeting state fire code requirements. Whereas in 2018, Kenneth acknowledged his talents for building relationships with Cary staff and the business community, and under the guidance of town manager Sean Stiegel and working with the economic development director Ted Boyd, built a new role for himself as the town's first small business liaison. Not finished yet. And whereas Kenneth set an example for other Cary employees to recognize their unique strengths and seek opportunities to broaden their areas of expertise and service. Whereas, in his new role, Kenneth utilized his kind and charismatic personality to nurture Cary's relationships with the business community and further economic development initiatives. Page 2. Oh my goodness. Whereas, led by his drive to serve, Kenneth touched many people throughout his 4 years as a small business liaison by attending countless events in the business community as a representative of the town of Cary. Now, therefore, I, Harold Weinberg, Mayor of the town of Cary, North Carolina, on behalf of the entire Cary Town Council, express our appreciation to Kenneth for his 35 years of faithful service and devotion to enhancing the quality of life for Cary residents. We thank you, Kenneth, for your vision, your leadership, and we wish you much happiness and continued success in your retirement, proclaimed on this 28th day of July, 2022. Thank you.
You know, this was a dream come true for me. I always wanted to speak before the council. Council and staff. But listen, this has been an awesome ride. Susan didn't get to write this for me, so I have no idea what I'm going to say. I could probably sum it up real quick and just say thank you, but that just would not be fair because I sort of remind myself of a turtle on a fence post. I did not get here by myself. But listen to this, guys. Started out as a little boy, barely 20, 21 years old, coming to Cary. Been nowhere, coming from Rocky Mount Fire Department, little poor boy coming from Rocky Mount. Who would have thought that my bald head, sweating head, will be standing here before you, pulling 30-some years of service in the fire service. And I could not have done it without some amazing, amazing people. Now, let me tell you, I've had an opportunity to work with some amazing council. Cary could not be where it is today without the vision that that council had. I'm going way back to like Coca Booth. I'm talking way back. But even everybody that's ever been voted into council, the vision and love they have for community. They say the greatest among you is the greatest server. You guys serve. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Now, I can tell you, Sean Stiegel, who I absolutely just fell in love with from the day I met him. Snazzy, sharp, dressing joker, him. I just fell in love with the guy, but his desire to make sure that he did not drop the ball, to put grown-ups on a reading program to make sure that he got their thought process right. You know, so I'm watching this from, you know, I'm gonna say I was watching it from the balcony. And to see that happening, and I understood, in order to change people's heart, you gotta change their mind, and how he did that, my hat's off to you, man. Congratulations. Thank you. You know, when I got snatched out of the fire department, I thought it was a curse. I just thought it was the most insensitive thing that ever could have happened to me. I just like, you know, that's what I thought I'd retire doing. And I went over to inspections and permits, and I got to work with a guy named Brian Stark. I fell in love with Brian Stark. Called him Batman, as a matter of fact. Brian Stark was one of the guys that just saw me as an equal and tried to get to know me and what made me think. Why would you make it that kind? He just took his time to get to know Kenneth. And because he did that, we're friends forever. And if I hadn't gone to inspections and permits, I would have never got to know Brian that way. So Brian Stark, I just want to say thank you so much, wherever you are. I know you're in the room somewhere, but thank you so much. Susan Moran, who could probably run the United States of America. You know, I met Susan back in the early 80s when we were doing Bud TV. And Susan had written this script, and I couldn't really say it the way she had wrote it because I'm a country boy from Rocky Mountain. It just won't going good for me. And you had to learn it. You had to learn it, man. You couldn't use a prompt or nothing. I was like, and the guy said, don't you change it. Susan Moran will kill you. You mind if I call Susan Moran? You better not call Susan. Can I email her? Yeah, you can email her. Susan Moran had me write the Bud TV the way I wanted to write it. She looked at it and says, Kenneth, that looks good. I did that a couple of times, and she said, you no longer need to run it through me. I'll give you the topic, write it the way you want to write it. And Susan, thanks for believing in me. Thanks for believing. So I always like to close with a couple of quotes, because everybody know I got a couple of quotes that's a little staple to me. Now, Dr. Ferry Porsche wrote it. He called it a life itself. But I'm going to call it a career. A career itself is a race marked by a start and a finish. It is what we learn during that career and how we apply it that determines whether our participation had particular value. I hope I gave a bunch to you guys. I tried. And secondly, I'm going to close with something that I always kept in my heart by Marion Wilson. Our biggest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our biggest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking so that others won't feel insecure around you. We were all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. So as you let your own light shine, you unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As you are liberated by your own fear, your presence automatically liberates others. Guys, in the words of, what's his name, Lester Holt, take care of yourself and take care of each other. Thanks.
He's something, isn't he?
Kenneth, you are truly a blessing, and we're so grateful to have you all these years. And speaking of blessings and having her all these years, I want to invite Karen Mills up. This is another two-pager, and we had to cut some out. We're going to miss Karen, too. I don't know what to say. As long as I've been here, probably as long as Jack's been here, you think about finance, you think about Karen. And she's going to be leaving us soon, but she set us up pretty good. You got some great people behind you ready to go. But we'll be missing you here, but we'll be seeing you around town.
Absolutely.
So we want to commend your retirement for your devoted service to the town of Cary with a proclamation. And here we go. Whereas after 31 years of acclaimed public service, Karen Mills is retiring August 2022, following a career dedicated to both her colleagues and the citizens of Cary that was exemplary, impactful, and worthy of special recognition. And whereas Karen earned a Bachelor of Science, Business Administration from the University of Arkansas, go Hogs, right? And subsequently became a certified public accountant, as well as a certified local government finance officer of North Carolina Government Finance Officers Association. Wow, that's a mouthful. And whereas in 1991, Karen left the career she began in the private sector to join the town of Cary, first serving with distinction as the Director of Finance, and subsequently continuing a record of precision and excellence in her leadership role as Chief Financial Officer, while at times embracing empathy and compassion in her interactions that exemplified the organizational value that we have of people first. And whereas Karen built and cultivated a strong financial foundation as part of her legacy, successfully and with the highest levels of stewardship and enhanced accountability, guided the organization through decades of budget cycles as Cary transitioned from a growing community of 46,000 when she began her career to a maturing community of more than 180,000 citizens today. And whereas Karen at the helm, year after year, Cary received Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, GFOA, Distinguished Budget Award, which is the only national awards program recognizing the highest quality of governmental budgeting. Additionally, due to her strategic guidance and striving to always achieve the highest levels of financial performance, Cary continued to earn AAA general obligation bond ratings by all the bond rating agencies, illustrating the town's financial strength under her management. And by the way, that saves us millions of dollars, just so you know. Page 2. Whereas, throughout her long tenure, Karen adaptively grew and led innovatively and positively as the town moved in a new direction through the years, enthusiastically embracing the evolving holistic leadership ideologies in the spirit of collaboration and organizational excellence, exemplified by her shepherding of the creation of Cary's advanced meter infrastructure system called Aquastar. Love Aquastar. Whereas Karen's focus on people, alongside her love of numbers as an accountant, coupled with her high standards for professional ethics, honesty, and uncompromising integrity, were a shining example to her fellow colleagues of the qualities required to achieve excellence in her leadership of Cary's venerated financial department. And whereas Karen will enjoy her retirement and her new grandbaby from the vast responsibilities inherent in her CFO role, but will always treasure the memories of her colleagues who became her friends and whom she profoundly touched throughout a 3-decade career that was marked by her warmth toward all who crossed her path and were fortunate enough to experience her authentic spirit of caring, informing, unique, and special relationships. Got that right. Now, therefore, I, Harold Weinbrecht, Mayor of the town of Cary, North Carolina, on behalf of the entire Cary Town Council, do hereby extend our personal congratulations, commendations, and appreciation to Karen Mills for her faithful service and dedication to the organization and the Cary community. And we, of course, extend our personal best wishes upon your retirement, wishing you so much happiness and continued success in all your future endeavors. Proclaim this 28th day of July, 2022. God bless you, Karen.
Thank you so much. In the spirit of collaboration, I would like to ask Kenneth Cottle to come up here and speak for me. That was awesome. I can't touch that. And that is what is so beautiful about the town of Cary, is the talent that we have accumulated here and how we work together. Today, I talked a little bit about how much has changed in my 31 years. Except Jack. Jack's been here. That's awesome. And through all of that, all of the things that we've accomplished, that we have accomplished, that we have done together under your leadership, and it has provided me with the most fulfilling career that I could ever imagine. In the spirit of collaboration, work together under your expert guidance and wisdom, inspiration. There aren't enough adjectives to talk to you about all of the positive attributes of Cary that facilitate so much goodness for us as an organization and employees and our community. And I'm so proud to be a Cary citizen, and I'll never leave, because I know the difference. And your leadership has made all that. I also want to thank Sean, which today I mentioned could be a blessing or a curse for all of the self-awareness that I've gained in the last 6 years. But the growth that I have had under his leadership, I will never be able to thank you enough, Sean and council, for your very excellent selections in staffing. Jenny and Lisa as well. So thank you very much. I'm honored, and I'll always be your friend and your biggest promoter and cheerleader. I'll be just down the road. Thank you so much.
That's a lot of talent in two people.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean, follow that up. Time for your update.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mayor, Council. A few weeks ago, Councilmember Smith and I were having a conversation about the continued unfortunate shootings, school shootings in particular, that we've experienced in this country, and sharing with me not only his concern, but the concerns that citizens have shared with him. And just was really wanting to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to prevent a tragedy like that from ever happening in Cary. And I mentioned to Jack that I shared his concerns, and certainly we're all united in that, other council members, community staff. But the best thing that we can do, while no one person can ultimately be the only solution to that, is to hire the best possible chief that you can find. And we've certainly have done that with Chief Salt. And Chief Salt has been working in that area for many, many years and is applying that, his trade here in Cary now. And I'd ask Chief Salt to come to the podium and talk about what we're doing in terms of preparedness for such a tragic type of event.
Well, Sean, thank you for the opportunity, and Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity in speaking. It's such an important topic. The things that we're dealing with across this country right now are just so challenging and concerning, and the protection of our children is probably one of the highest things and highest priorities that we should have. You know, fortunately, Cary has a long history in prevention, and I think Kenneth's career is an illustration of focusing on prevention in the fire service. We have a great relationship with the fire department, which is huge in their area of prevention. By the way, Kenneth, we're hiring. I hope that's not too soon. But in all seriousness, the prevention is an aspect, and from that we look at real-time information, real-time systems. What can we know when we get it, how fast we recognize that information, can analyze it, whether it is information that we get off the internet where someone is making threats, or whether it's in the moment when we get the first phone call, how fast we recognize that stuff. We've made a lot of progress in just the past few months in moving in the direction of real-time situational awareness. I can tell you that in my first phone conversation, or actually first sit-down conversation with the manager, one of the first things he mentioned to me was the importance of being prepared and helping and looking at our town as we grow past 180,000 people in population. And that has been on his mind long before I got here. And I can tell you that the support I have seen here with the manager and with the council has been second to none, and I've been in this business a long time in 3 states. To that end, we have already taken some steps in preparedness. Getting to the scene quickly is very, very important and key. And you have to remember that when we have a critical incident, we also have to take care of all the other emergencies that occur in town. And so just the simple thing of doing a one-on-one car plan that the council has approved, and the ability for the officers to take those cars home, give us a surge capability that we didn't have a year ago. And it gives us the ability to get there quickly. But it's not good enough to be very good at what we do, and I will tell you that the assessment I have done over the last number of months tells me that we are very good and we are prepared, but we constantly have to evolve. And as we evolve, we have to be looking at the past of things that occurred with Columbine back in the late 90s, with Beslan in North Odessa, with the Beslan school shooting back in 2004 overseas. It changed the way we think about keeping our kids safe and what we should be doing in rapid response. Uvalde here recently has caused us to rethink about how quickly we can get into a classroom and the necessity of getting into a classroom very rapidly when we have the worst occur. And so we have been looking at not only we have the tools to do that, but are they in the right place? Are they available when we need them? Because we never know where that incident is going to occur. So those conversations have been going on for months. We are preparing for that, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Karen Mills publicly for the parting shot of helping keep Cary safe. In a brief conversation we had in celebrating her career here, She helped us acquire the funding with the approval of the manager to enhance our situational awareness, particularly at special events, with some mobile video trailers that will interact with the Emergency Operations Center and our real-time operations. And that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for a conversation with Karen, so thank you very much for that. We have engaged with others internally and externally to the organization to make sure that we're getting outside and other experiences and advice from other people to make sure that we're better. And I think over the next, as soon as lazy days, you're going to see some improvements in our safety on the street. You're going to notice some portable barricades that'll help us prevent rogue drivers from coming into a crowd like we experienced over in England not too long ago and a couple of places up in New York a number of years ago. But you'll see some of those things gradually taking place as we improve our capabilities. The biggest thing is collaboration and partnerships, and I want to thank Chief Cooper and his staff and Tony Desmetz as the Public Safety Director with the collaboration that we have going now. I can assure you that the planning will never stop, will constantly evolve. We are doing a strategic planning retreat in September with the police department. We've invited other departments to come to that. And a big topic in that, one of the hugest priorities, is how can we be better prepared? And how do we evolve for the challenges that we're going to face with the new population and the economic growth that we're experiencing? So with that, any questions?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief or Mr. Stiegel? Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the only comment is just a genuine and sincere thank you. I think tonight's comments really put a lot of people gives them some peace of mind, and really appreciate the update. And this gives me the opportunity to get back to those folks that have shared that concern over July 4th. So thank you very much on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
We now move to our third item on the agenda, Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at Public Speaks Out on the online and printed agenda. You had 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out through written comments, or by calling in, or by attending here tonight in person. And if you are here in person and would like to speak, I'd ask you to take a seat in the rows that are shown to my right, that are shown as reserved. And keep in mind, Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments. Speakers may speak on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing. And we do have several public hearings tonight, and that works to your benefit because you get more time to speak at the public hearing. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced to be fair to all of our speakers, not to be rude. Starts off, there's a timer on the podium, starts off with a green light. And when it goes to yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when it turns to a flashing red, that's the point again where I will interrupt you, not trying to be mean or unfair, but trying to be fair to all of the speakers. I want to thank everyone in the audience for understanding that this is a business meeting. Do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, or anything else that may distract from our meeting. So now is the time for Public Speaks Out, and I'll first call on the clerk to read any comments and call on any call-in speakers.
No written comments and no registered call-in or in-person speakers.
Okay. Now I'll open it up to those on the floor. If you would like to speak at Public Speaks Out, I would invite you forward at this time.
Use this one? Okay. Hello. Sorry. Hi, everyone. As you know, the Gala Investments team and I...
Could you state your name?
Oh, yeah, sorry. My name is Garang Gala. And I'm going to be talking about the terraces at West Cary rezoning project. As you know, the Gala Investments team and I have been working hard on finalizing our rezoning for the terraces at West Cary with our community in mind. We've spent months talking with neighbors, amending plans, and listening to insight from the town. We've made a lot of progress, and with this, are thrilled to have the support of over 100 West Cary residents backing the terraces, of whom 45 of them live in the Blakely subdivision. Also, one of the recent things that I noticed on Triangle Business Journal that I'd sent to Councilwoman Liu earlier was due to the new North Carolina Supreme Court case, there was an option now for future rezoning cases to allow rooftop solar. So that's one of the things that we are actually going to incorporate into our townhome project, is giving every new homeowner the option to purchase rooftop solar. Because if you do it after your home is built, you basically have to take like a home equity line or a credit card loan, and your amortization is shorter. Whereas if you bundle it into an actual home, it's no different than an option such as an additional bathroom or granite countertops and those kind of things. So it makes it financially feasible. It's obviously significantly green and environmentally friendly, and it goes right along with one of our other zoning conditions where we will have electric charging capabilities in every garage in all of the units. This has been a very intense, crazy journey. I was up here in front of y'all, I think last April or May, and coming from there to today, I've learned so much about the rezoning process. This is my first time ever doing this. I moved to Cary in 2015, and I've lived in North Carolina my whole life since we immigrated from India, and by far, Cary has been the best place I've lived in North Carolina.
I hate to interrupt praises, but
Are we at 3 minutes?
You're at-
All right. Well, thank you. That's really what I wanted to say. Thank you, everybody.
thank you. Please don't applaud. Thank you. Next speaker for Public Speaks Out. Anyone else for Public Speaks Out? All right, we'll close Public Speaks Out, and we'll move to the consent agenda portion, which is item number 4. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV, I'll take a moment to review all the consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have minutes, 21 REZ 9518 9520 Chapel Hill Road rezoning and statement of consistency. Calling for a public hearing for 22A02 Park annexation and 22A11 Park Overlook annexation. Intersection improvement bid awards. Amendment to traffic schedules 5 and 8 parking restrictions. Appointment of town treasurer. Updates to stormwater policy statements. Would council members like any of these items pulled for discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
There's a motion.
Second?
Second, discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We're now at public hearings. Same rules apply for public hearings that apply for Public Speaks Out, except one rule change, and that's speakers now have 5 minutes each for their comments. Our first public hearing is Act 24 Land Development Ordinance Amendments, and Assistant Town Manager Dana Widmar will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this item this evening. Instead, it will be deferred to our Planning and Zoning Board, who will review it and make a recommendation, and it will come back to council at a future time. Ms. Widmar.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, for your consideration, is the Act 24 amendment to Cary's Land Development Ordinance. This includes proposed updates to the flood ordinance and consolidating existing environmental protections into a new chapter. First is item A. To maintain the availability of flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program for Cary residents, The flood ordinance must meet minimum criteria established by FEMA. Additionally, by incorporating language that aligns with enrollment in the community rating system, Cary can earn additional credits which translate into insurance savings for our residents. Second is item B, which removes existing sections related to environmental protection regulations within the LDO that were identified and selected for relocation to a new chapter. And lastly is item C, which involves the creation of a new LDO Chapter 14, Environmental Regulation, which consolidates those selected sections into one chapter. For the flood ordinance update, in May, Cary adopted the new Wake County flood insurance rate maps. The next step in the process is to update our floodplain management regulations to meet FEMA criteria by incorporating the most recent model ordinance language and definitions, as well as to incorporate FEMA recommended language for future CRS credit. To summarize, the updates include establishing the role of the town floodplain administrator, clarifying the floodplain development permit process to facilitate better record keeping by the town, providing additional clarifications for when FEMA elevation certificates are required, and, as suggested by FEMA, to earn additional CRS credits, incorporating a more protective threshold for when an existing structure in the floodplain would be required to meet the current building construction requirements. Essentially, today, Cary requires a building to retrofit to current flood regulations if the building is upgraded and the cumulative cost of the repairs in that year exceed 50%. The change will take it to a retrofit requirement that is applicable once the cumulative cost of repairs over a 5-year period exceeds 50%. During the process of reviewing the flood updates, staff identified an opportunity to better serve Cary citizens by reorganizing several sections related to environmental protections. The existing sections that regulate tree clearing and stream buffers, erosion and sediment control, illegal discharges, nuisance and hazard controls, as well as the newly updated flood damage protection ordinance, would be moved from their current locations in the LDO to a new environmental regulation chapter. And the last part today is the creation of that new Chapter 14. This consolidates many of the LDO's existing environmental protections in a single location. Grouping these existing environmental protection regulations within the ordinance highlights their importance and provides easier access for Cary citizens. Creating the new Chapter 14 reflects Cary's commitment to conserving trees, preserving open space, protecting natural resources, preventing pollution, and reducing flood damages. This concludes staff's overview of the proposed Act 24 LDO amendments. Staff recommends that council conduct the public hearing and refer the proposed Act 24 LDO amendment to the Planning and Zoning Board for a recommendation. Following the public hearing, I'm available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Widmar. At this time, I'll call on our town clerk to read any written comments and call on any call-in or registered speakers.
No written comments, no registered speakers.
Okay. I'll invite anyone in the audience who would like to speak at this public hearing to approach the podium at this time. Could you move to your left, please? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan Jones. I live in the Triangle Forest neighborhood, and I've been a resident for my whole life. Today, I will be covering why Old Apex Road Forest is important and should be allowed to remain as it is.
This is a public hearing coming up. It'll be our 5th public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
This current public hearing is about the LDO requirements
I'm sorry.
or amendments. That's okay. I'll call on you first. Ryan, right?
Yeah.
When we get to that one, I'll call on you first. How's that?
Really sorry.
All right, no problem. It's hard to keep up. Believe me, I've got it all written in front of me. That's how I can keep up. Anyone to speak on the LDO amendments? Okay, I'll close the public hearing for the LDO amendments and call on council for any questions or comments. All right, we'll send this to the Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and it will come back to us in a future date. Thank you, Ms. Sweetwater. We now move to the next two public hearing, which is a rezoning and an annexation, and since they're related, we're going to hold them together, and that's the 21 REZ 17 Destin Phase 3 and 21A 18 Goodwin and Destin LLC annexation. And Senior Planner Aaron Puckett will introduce the item, and council will not take action on this rezoning or annexation tonight, and it will be returned to us after a recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Board. Ms. Puckett.
Thank you, and good evening, council. This is a request to annex and apply initial Town of Cary zoning to approximately 32 acres located on the north side of Ludershop Road at its intersection with Thompson Road. And as the mayor noted, the public hearing this evening will be for both rezoning and annexation. Regarding the associated annexation, the site is not contiguous to Cary's primary corporate limits, being only contiguous to a satellite, which was previously annexed for the first phases of the Destin development. The site meets the statutory requirements for a non-contiguous or satellite annexation. As noted in the annexation staff report, the site is able to be served by utilities, but exceeds the 1,000-foot drivable distance to a fire hydrant needed to ensure that Cary can provide the same level of service to this site as to other sites in Cary. And there is an existing dwelling and outbuildings on the property. The applicant is aware of the issue and has recently submitted a development plan for a water main extension to locate a fire hydrant closer to the dwelling. Currently, service is provided to the site by the North Chatham Fire District, but once annexed, Cary would provide service. As a reminder, no action is needed on the annexation tonight. It will return to you at a future date to align with final decision on the rezoning and with installation of that water line. The site is an assemblage of two parcels located in Chatham County, just under a mile from the Wake County line. It is adjacent to Destin Phases 1 and 2 to the north, and is otherwise surrounded by vacant parcels and large lot single-unit development. This is a view looking south on Ludershop Road with the site on the right. There are overhead utility lines running along the site's frontage. The site has over 1,000 feet of frontage on Ludershop Road, but the linear frontage is not continuous due to an intervening residential lot. So it is possible that Duke would be willing to place the lines along both this site's frontage and the intervening lot underground, but staff does not have adequate information at this time to confirm whether the lines would be buried. According to Cary's GIS, there are no stream buffers located on the site, but field determination of such features is required at time of development plan review. Ludershop Road is identified as an undivided two-lane thoroughfare on Cary's future roadway widths map. And there is a future street-side trail along the property's frontage on Ludershop Road, per the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan. The trail is required to be constructed with the proposed development. The site is currently zoned Chatham County Residential 1, and the applicant proposes initial Cary zoning of R12CU, which is consistent with the Destin subdivision to the north, which was rezoned in 2016 via Case 15 REZ 24. The applicant has also offered 3 zoning conditions, which include limiting the use to detached dwellings and neighborhood recreation, limiting the maximum density to 40 dwellings, which is approximately 1.3 units per acre, and providing a minimum lot size of 17,500 square feet. A preliminary analysis of the request against the Imagine Cary Community Plan finds the policies and the Live and Shape chapters apply most directly. The proposed zoning and annexation into Cary limits would provide some additional housing within Cary. The relatively low density and 0.4 acre lot size are consistent with the Destin subdivision to the north and would provide a reasonable transition between that neighborhood and the larger lots in the surrounding area. The site is also within the Chatham-Cary Joint Land Use Planning Area, specifically in the low-density residential subdistrict. This area recommends densities not to exceed 2 units per acre and generally encourages a downward transition in density as development moves west. The proposed density of about 1.3 units per acre is consistent with this plan recommendation. A virtual neighborhood meeting was initially held in December of last year. After that time, a second parcel was added to the assemblage, and a second meeting was therefore required. Approximately 12 members of the public participated in the first meeting and 6 in the second. Questions and concerns included questions about the proposed density and lot size, concerns about stormwater drainage, questions about buffer widths, and concerns about street lights and the school capacity in the area. After the neighborhood meeting, several emails were exchanged with 2 citizens who had follow-up questions about stormwater issues and general questions and concerns regarding development in Chatham County. Staff mailed public hearing notification to property owners within 800 feet of the site, which exceeds both the state's and Cary's LDO requirements. And this concludes my presentation. The applicant's representative is also here tonight to speak to this request, and following the public hearing, I'm available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Puckett.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Glenda Top with Glenda S. Top and Associates. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. Erin did an excellent job going over our proposal, so I'm going to keep it short and just hit on some key points. As she pointed out, the request is to rezone the property from R1 in Chatham County to R12 conditional use in Cary. The only uses that will be permitted are residential detached units and neighborhood recreation. There's a maximum of 40 dwelling units and a minimum lot size of 17,500. Destin 3 is a continuation of the existing Destin that's under construction today. The same lot size along with dimensional requirements are the same as the current Destin. The density is consistent with what's already out there. As staff pointed out, the density is 1.3 units per acre and does provide an excellent transition from the existing Destin to the surrounding area. In addition to being within the Cary Community Plan, there's another layer, the joint Chatham-Cary Land Use Plan. In that plan, the density is low density designation, and the preferred density is somewhere between 1 and 2 units per acre. With the 1.3 units per acre, we are well within the requirements of the joint plan. I want to close by saying, given the location of the property, which is adjacent to Destin, it's in close proximity to the Wake County line, and utilities are already in the area, the site is an excellent piece of property for the use being proposed. And with that, I will conclude, and we look forward to working through the process and coming back to you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Top. So now's the time for the public hearing for 21 REZ 17 and 21A 18. And I'll call on the town clerk to read any written comments or call on any call-in speakers or registered speakers.
No written comments and no registered speakers.
If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak at this public hearing about the rezoning and annexation for Destin, I would invite you forward at this time. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments.
I have a couple of quick questions. Looter shop, will it be improved with gutter and all of that for both Destins at the same time? Is that, or will the first Destin happen in the next one?
The first Destin is already under construction. I believe those improvements are actually completed. I walked the street side trail myself when I went to post this site.
Okay.
So those improvements are there. This would be a continuation of that widening curb and gutter street side trail.
And what is the total number of homes for the, I don't know, do we just call it Destin? Destin 1, 2, and 3, and 4?
The rezoning approved 50 lots for Destin Phases 1 and 2, the first rezoning to the north. I don't believe I have the exact number approved on the development plan in front of me, but I can get that. The rezoning approved 50, and then this would add another maximum of 40, so a maximum of 90 lots total.
So from a traffic analysis, it's still underneath the 100 threshold?
Correct, so it did not trigger a traffic study.
Okay, and then the last question, I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I'll ask. This is in Chatham County, and so the questions by residents and potential homeowners is around school capacity, is that they will go to Chatham County schools. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. And we share development information with Chatham County, just like we do with Wake County schools.
Okay, because there's no schools on this side of Jordan, there's no Chatham County schools on this side of Jordan Lake.
That's my understanding.
So anyone who purchases this house, at one point we had some sort of, we asked a developer to do some sort of letter to potential homeowners so that they knew what they were getting into. I can't remember if we still do that, or is anybody worried about that, or am I the only one? No? I guess I'm the only one. All right. I just think it's fair to potential homeowners that don't even know about the due diligence of realizing across the street, or not really across the street, down the road, they think they're going to go to the same school. They're going to go to Wake County schools, but they're actually in Chatham County, which means that if they do elementary school or middle or high, they're going to have a bus ride of at least a half an hour.
Yeah, as a parent of
They can have
eight
that in
children,
Wake County now.
let me tell you, that's the first question they ask, so they know. Like every family who would buy
They know.
into it, they already know, like exactly what schools there.
And we don't know not that we have anything that we can do, we don't know the plans around school siting for Chatham County in Cary.
I do not, but that is something that we could look into. We can see if we can reach out to our Chatham County contacts and see if we can get any information.
I'd just like to know if they have any plans, they've looked at it, just so that when a constituent calls us, we can say, yeah, sorry, they're not looking at it, so that we have some information.
Other questions, comments? This will go to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and we'll see it in a few months. Thank you, Ms. Puckett.
Thank you.
We now move to the fourth public hearing, 22 REZ 09, which is at 3528 Optimus Farm Road, and Senior Housing Planner Heather Wheelahan will introduce the item, and council will not take action on this item tonight, but it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board. Ms. Wheelahan.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the public hearing for 22 REZ 09, a request to rezone 6.97 acres at 3528 Optimus Farm Road from its current zoning of Wake County R30 Residential 30 to Cary zoning R8 CU Residential 8 Conditional Use. The property is a quarter mile from Middle Creek High School and just east of Westlake Road, from the Westlake Road and Optimus Farm Road intersection. It is contiguous on 3 sides to Cary's corporate limits and will require annexation. The public hearing for the annexation will be held in the coming weeks. Cary's GIS maps indicate a pond on the northeastern portion of the site. Field determination will be made at the time of development plan review. This is a view of the site in relation to Optimus Farm Road looking east. There are presently no overhead power lines along the subject site's frontage on Optimus Farm Road, and per the LDO, all utility lines are required to be installed underground. The development will facilitate additional vehicular and pedestrian connections. As required by the LDO, Bluethorn Drive will be extended to Optimus Farm Road upon development of this site. The new road will provide emergency access and support neighborhood connectivity. Additionally, the applicant will be required to construct the approximately 435-foot section of the future sidewalk along the property's frontage. American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funding, was included in this year's 2023 budget to construct the missing link on Optimus Farm Road between Home Place Drive and Henderson Road. That means that together, this development and Cary's ARPA sidewalk project will create a new continuous pedestrian connection along Optimus Farm Road from neighborhoods east of Henderson Road to Westlake Road. This helps more directly connect these neighborhoods to Middle Creek Elementary, middle, and high schools. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Plan does not propose any greenways within or immediately adjacent to the site. However, there are 3 corridors in proximity. The Westlake Road Streetside Trail is located approximately a quarter-mile west of the site. Access to this trail will be possible via the new sidewalks along Optimus Farm Road. Additionally, the proposed Westlake Greenway corridor is located approximately 1.17 miles north of the site, and the proposed Optimus Farm Greenway corridor is located approximately 1/10 a mile east of the site. The Middle Creek School Park is located approximately 0.6 miles west of the site. The property is currently zoned Wake County R30 Residential 30, and the applicant proposes to rezone to R8 CU Residential 8 Conditional Use. The applicant has offered several conditions. These include limiting the uses to detached dwellings, limiting the dwellings to a maximum of 20 or just under 3 units per acre, and committing that the lots be calculated exclusive of the riparian buffers. Live, Shape, Move, and Serve chapter policies of the Imagine Cary Community Plan are most relevant to this request. The proposal could support Live policies by facilitating residential development on infill sites. And in terms of the Shape chapter, the rezoning proposes infill development on an underperforming site along Optimus Farm Road and continues an appropriate, harmonious transition between adjacent neighborhoods. The proposal also supports the Move chapter as the development of these properties will facilitate additional pedestrian and vehicular connections with the completion of Bluethorn Drive and the new sidewalks along Optimus Farm Road. This proposal also supports the Serve chapter by including the condition to calculate the lots exclusive of the riparian buffers. The Future Growth Framework map designates the subject site within the suburban neighborhood development category. Suburban neighborhoods are the primary transition zones adjacent to county development and consist primarily of single-unit detached dwellings with occasional pods of patio homes and townhomes. The Cary Community Plan notes R8 as an appropriate zoning for this designation. We mailed public hearing notification to property owners within 800 feet of the subject site, and this exceeds both the state's and Cary's LDO requirements. We posted the property with a public hearing sign, and notice is also on Cary's website. Staff facilitated a virtual neighborhood meeting in May, and 26 members of the public attended. Comments included concern for stormwater runoff on Field Glow Lane, concern for traffic on Optimus Farm Road, concern for the removal of trees and requests for more open space, a preference for single detached dwellings with larger lots, questions regarding the sidewalks, and questions regarding the extension of Bluethorn Drive. Staff received 3 emails and 1 call since the neighborhood meeting, and these comments were regarding the street connections and the buffers. This concludes my presentation, and following the applicant's comments, I'm available for questions. Brandon Moore, the applicant's representative, is here to address you this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler.
Good evening. I'm Brandon Moore with the site group. I'm here to represent the applicant. Heather did a wonderful job explaining everything that we've looked at and the details of the project. I just wanted to mention that we did have a neighborhood meeting. Like she said, there were concerns about the lot size and density. And so we did revise our maximum down from 24 to 20 before we came to the public hearing, just to be responsive. We want to be responsive to the neighborhood's concerns and be a good partner with them as we go through this process. I'll be here to answer your questions, and we look forward to getting started. Thank you.
Thank you. So now's the time for the public hearing for 22 RAZ09. I'll once again call on our clerk for written comments, call-in speakers, or registered speakers.
No written comments. We did have 1 registered speaker, Donald Regno.
Okay. If you're here, please come forward. Going once. Say the name again. Do we pronounce it correctly?
Donald Regno.
Regno. Mr. Regno, are you here? Okay. Anyone else that's not registered that would like to speak at this public hearing, I would invite you forward. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments. None. Moving right along. This will go to the Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and we'll see this in a few months. Okay, we come to our last public hearing. It's the Old Apex Road rezoning, and Senior Planner Aaron Puckett will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this item tonight. It will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation and turn to us in a few months. Ms. Puckett.
Thank you again. This is a request to rezone approximately 21 acres located on Old Apex Road, about 550 feet south of its intersection with West Chatham Street. The subject property is an assemblage of 4 parcels with frontage on Old Apex Road. The CSX Railroad is located about 200 feet to the east, and the Triangle Forest subdivision is adjacent to the west. Portions of the Oxford Hunt PDD are located to the north, and Garden Supply Company is located across Old Apex Road to the south. A portion of the Oxford Hunt PDD to the north of the subject rezoning is already zoned for a variety of residential options, including multifamily. The applicant intends to utilize this parcel, highlighted in red here, for a portion of the development, in part because access on a second public street will be required for the number of units proposed. This parcel is not included in the rezoning request since it has an existing zoning entitlement for the proposed use. This is a view looking north on Old Apex Road with the site on the left. Power lines run along and through portions of the subject site. Given the large amount of road frontage associated with the site, Duke may allow the lines along the frontage to be located underground, and this will be further evaluated at time of development plan. According to Cary's GIS, there are stream buffers that impact portions of the site. Field determination of such features is required at time of development plan review. Old Apex Road is identified as a 5-lane thoroughfare on the future roadway widths map. Currently, it varies from 2 to 3 lanes along the site frontage. The Go Cary Apex Cary Express route runs along Old Apex Road but does not have a stop in the vicinity of the site. However, Cary Transit staff is evaluating the feasibility of adding local service to this corridor as part of the Wake Bus Plan update for fiscal years 2024 to 2030. Per the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan, there is a planned greenway trail along the western boundary of the site. The current zoning of the assemblage is R40, and the applicant wishes to rezone the property to residential multifamily conditional use. The applicant has offered several zoning conditions, including limiting the use of the site to 255 multifamily dwellings and associated accessory uses, providing a 50-foot wide Type A buffer along the western property line, which is 10 feet wider than the LDO requirement, constructing the greenway shown on this site on the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan, along with a pedestrian crossing across Old Apex Road to include a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, or RRFB, as long as it is warranted and approved by NCDOT. Providing a minimum of 6,250 square feet of community gathering space, which is 25% more than the LDO requirement. Providing 2,000 square feet of additional landscaped area in the vicinity of the greenway easement, which will be planted with trees and shrubs. And providing at least 6 electric vehicle charging stations. The applicant has also offered some of the traffic improvements recommended by the traffic study, including extending the northbound and eastbound left turn lanes at the Old Apex and Cary Parkway intersection to the southwest, as well as improvements at each of the site access points. The applicant's traffic engineer submitted justification for the improvements not offered, which is attached to your staff report as a separate memo. Note that site drive number 3, which is shown in the northernmost circle on this map, is outside of the area proposed for rezoning. This is because, as previously mentioned, the development would need to include the parcel to the north to meet Cary requirements for access on a second public street for 100 or more dwelling units. This access point was also an assumption of the traffic study. A preliminary analysis of the request against the Cary Community Plan finds that policies from several chapters apply. The proposed use of multifamily residential would provide more housing choices on one of the few remaining R40 zoned assemblages in this area. Of existing housing in a 1-mile radius of the site, about 14% of units are currently multifamily. The provision of this denser housing type also supports the work policy to provide diverse housing options to support Cary's current and future workforce. The commitment to construct the greenway segment along the western property line of the subject site exceeds the LDO requirement to dedicate an easement for Cary to construct the trail in the future, which therefore helps meet goals of the engaged chapter. And similarly, the construction of the off-street greenway and commitment to an RRFB pedestrian signal helps address the MOVE policy regarding safety for all modes. The SHAPE chapter speaks to providing transitions between land uses by separating them, such as with increased buffers, or by connecting them using form or use transitions. The applicant has not committed to specifics regarding architecture or height, although the 35-foot height limit in RMF zoning would be the same as that of the surrounding residential zoning districts. The applicant has offered a somewhat wider perimeter buffer along the western property line, where adjacent to low-density detached dwellings. The future growth framework designation of heritage neighborhood also supports the largest diversity of housing types and supports multifamily uses in those areas. And finally, the aforementioned buffer, along with a commitment to at least 6 EV charging stations, does at least partially address some of the SERV chapter policies regarding sustainable energy, open space, and tree preservation. A virtual neighborhood meeting was held in January, and over 80 members of the public attended. Questions and comments included concerns regarding stormwater drainage, buffers and tree preservation, impacts to wildlife habitat, crime rates, the density, height, and residential use of the development and how it might fit in with the existing neighborhoods, the potential for units to be rented rather than owned, parking rates, and traffic impacts. Staff received emails and 311 inquiries from 19 citizens. Staff also met in person with a group of 3 neighbors from Triangle Forest. Some citizens expressed similar concerns as the comments received at the neighborhood meeting, especially regarding the use and density and environmental considerations. Some questioned whether the heritage neighborhood designation was appropriate for this area and suggested Cary might consider a plan amendment. Some wanted general clarity on the plan and how it is applied to rezoning requests. Others were simply seeking information such as links to the application or traffic study, the Cary community plan, zoning maps, or updates on meetings for the case. Staff mailed public hearing notification to property owners within 800 feet of the subject site, which exceeds both the state's and Cary's LDO requirements. This concludes my presentation. Once again, the applicant's representative is here to speak to the request tonight, and following the public hearing, I'm available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Puckett. At this time, I'd invite the applicant's representative forward to speak.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Avi Graywall with Sing Development. We are the applicant. I'm here tonight with our team from Sing Development, as well as our civil engineering consultant, traffic consultant, and legal consultants. First off, I'd like to thank Aaron and the rest of the staff at Town of Cary for working with us for the past year. They've been fantastic to work with, and I think they've put together a good package for tonight and presentation tonight. A little bit about Sing Development, as some of you might know, we're a family-owned and operated company since 1973. We've had an office here in Cary since 2005. Several members of the family, including myself, live here, call Cary home. My sister, Money, who's part of the team here tonight, half her property is in Cary, so we won't hold that against her, but she's a part Cary resident. In 2010, we opened up our first community in Cary, Waltonwood Senior Living off US 1 and Cary Parkway. Today, we are actively doing a multi-million-dollar renovation to meet the future needs of those senior residents there, as well as our associates working at that community. We're also about to complete our first multifamily community, which is the first phase of an intergenerational development at the intersection of Cary Parkway and Evans called Griffin Weston. Some of you folks we're honored to have at our grand opening late last year, as well as the raise of our sculpture at the intersection done by local artist Thomas Sayer. This property off Old Apex Road, our plan is to do a community very similar to what we have there off Cary Parkway and Evans right now, Griffin Weston. We believe we've met much needed demand with our stacked flat or carriage home style product there in that community. Just for instance, one example, I was looking at the data today. A median age of our current residents there is about 45, where the median age of other multifamily communities in Cary is between 25 and 30. And so here off Old Apex Road, we think that demand is still there for that product, especially with its close proximity to downtown Cary and everything happening in Fenton, where the residential developments, the new residential developments there are much higher in density. After our scheduled neighborhood meeting last January, we had a few meetings with various neighbors, representative of the neighbors of the property there. We were able to share a little bit about us as developer operators, shared some of our conceptual plans, and we appreciated the openness of them and willing to meet us, and looking forward to hearing from some of them tonight, as well as you all. We have the team here to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So now's the time for the public hearing for 21 REZ 16. I'll call on our clerk to first summarize written comments, then to call on any call-in speakers. Then I will call on Mr. Jones, and then you can call on registered speakers, and then we'll open it to anyone else.
Sounds good. We do have written comments. We do have one call-in speaker and registered speakers as well. So of the written comments, we received 36. 33 of those comments were in opposition to the rezoning. I'll list out the concerns that repeatedly appeared through these opposition comments. This development would be an abrupt transition between the current uses and goes against Cary's approved plans for the area, especially those plans reflected in the Cary Community Plan. Environmental concerns about the removal of the natural lake, trees, and habitats. Lack of public transportation options. Lack of noise and light buffers between uses. Lacks affordable housing options. Concerns of excess stormwater overflow, and requests to limit higher density development in this area. One comment requested the roads and sidewalk infrastructure be updated as part of the project. One comment supported the project, and one comment requested affordable housing be included in the development.
Okay, thank you.
We have one call-in speaker on the line. Brian, would you confirm that you can hear us?
I can hear you.
Please proceed.
For the sake of time, I summarized my points. The full document is provided to all the council members via email. The residents of Cary are asking the council to strike down proposed rezoning of the low-density single-family residential zone into high-density, out-of-character up to three-story multifamily zone, as it does not adhere to the standards set forth in both the Cary Community Plan and the rezoning request itself. My summary points are as follows. The developer submitted plan purposely omits CCP policies 1 and 6, as this request does not satisfy those key requirements. It only makes mentions and justifications for policies 2, 3, and 5. Against policy 6, developer has repeatedly referenced his model development, Griffin West, which is 30% higher in rent as compared to the average rent in Cary. The average one-bedroom apartment goes for $2,215 per their website, and the average rent in Cary for a one-bedroom apartment is $1,558 per rent cafe. So this is not affordable housing. It's 30% higher. It's luxury accommodations. It doesn't meet the diversity and affordability requirements of policy 6. Against policy 1, there's nothing zoned similar in the immediate area, which violates CC policies and creating an incohesive environment and transition between the adjacent homes. Developer submitted plan is overly ambiguous, purposely vague, and consistent with the CCP, and lacks factual evidence to support provided justifications. As an example, the rezoning application states that the proposed Rezoning is unlikely to have significant adverse impact on the environment. The developer's response is simply, proposed rezoning will not have significant adverse impacts on the natural environment. This is simply not fact-based response without so much as the smallest attempt to provide any evidence to substantiate their claims. Draining the pond is environmentally significant and goes against both zoning request requirements and CCP Policy 1. The entire underwater ecosystem is going to be destroyed. Per GIS, other developers around the area have embraced nature by developing around those bodies of water. The traffic study allows concessions for the developer to choose cheaper options, which they have already demonstrated and highlighted by adding a 50-foot line on Old Apex and Cary Parkway when there is a much needed and recommended as option number 1 per the traffic study to add an additional left-hand turn lane to satisfy the high volume of traffic coming from the Costco area down by Lake Pine. The developer is a Michigan-based entity, and personally, with me, has a track record of being dishonest when asked specifically about the pond. They did not provide adequate information, actually omitted information from their response. Looking at their business entities, they're going to come in, they're going to make a new LLC, they're going to dissolve that just like everybody else, and they're going to leave us. So I have generally one question left for the board. What's the point of having zoning if you buy a house in a single-family neighborhood and your backyard can be rezoned into multifamily high-rises? With my remaining 1.5 minutes about my personal experience with zoning as follows. In 2019, I set about expanding my forever home, my lot zone, with a 20-foot rear offset and 10-foot side offset. The lot's on a cul-de-sac and the shape is an odd shape. I approached the planning board and the board multiple times about variances to build 10 feet off my rear property line. Was ultimately told it is nearly impossible to get a variance and not to waste my money as my request doesn't demonstrate need. Although multiple town council members have said zoning cannot dictate what someone builds on their property, in my case, zoning certainly did. Ultimately, I built a detached structure 5 feet from my current house, which per zoning rules allowed me to build 5 feet from my rear line and 5 feet from my sideline instead of 20 and 10 repeatedly. The town basically forced me to build closer to my neighbor's property than I would have if I had built an attached structure. This shows that zoning does and can have impact on residents and should also apply to developers. The town did not make concessions for me as a resident. I'm asking you not to make concessions for a development entity who will dissolve their LLC once construction is complete. And that was my speed reading. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
That's our only call-in speaker. Our next is the in-person registered speakers.
Okay. This time I would invite Mr. Jones back.
Let's give this a second try. Hi, my name is Ryan Jones. I lived in the Triangle Forest neighborhood and have been a resident for my whole life. Today I will be covering why Old Apex Road Forest is important and should be allowed to remain a forest. Let me start off by saying that I love how accessible nature is in the Piedmont. We have so many parks within an hour drive. It's fantastic to be in a central location that has so many great spots like the Eno River, Jordan Lake, Falls Lake, and many others within an hour of here. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. What I'm here to talk about today is the importance of green spaces within our community that provide essential roles for wildlife, flood prevention, soil erosion, and cooling of surrounding areas. I've explored this forest countless times over my stay here in Cary, and every time I'm there, I hear a songbird or see one of the deer that live there. I've seen at least 3 types of frog, 2 types of toad, and 1 snapping turtle who really likes peanuts. Let's see. When we are deciding how to manage Cary's land, it's important that we keep into consideration the native residents. Since Cary is becoming further urbanized, the wildlife that is native to here is being pushed into tighter and tighter quarters. Over time, this will result in more competition along with scarce resources, which may result in deer coming into contact with humans, more raccoons burrowing through your trash, and a large population of rabid animals. I think we can all agree that's not exactly a good thing for anyone. So I might hear you say, well, that's not a concern for me, but what I'd like to bring up is some concerns that are for you. This patch of land has a large pond right against the road. During heavy storms, this pond acts as a water retainer and prevents the nearby road from flooding. I have seen the water line reach about 3 feet away from the road. If we remove this pond, we will see a dramatic increase in flooding during storms, which will cut off a major travel route for many people in Cary and Apex. So for whatever reason, if this flooding is not a problem for you, I have something that is. Heat retention and how forests affect this important aspect of nature. Forests maintain temperatures, keeping it cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter. Concrete and asphalt do the opposite. If we continue to ignore our smaller green spaces, we're looking at a drastic increase in summer temperatures and possible droughts. Now, I don't know about you, but I for one think it already gets plenty hot in the summer and would prefer to do what we can to keep it cooler. If I haven't already convinced you that this forest and pond are important, I have one last point that I feel will. Cary has problems with erosion. We all know this. We've seen them out on the sidewalks. We've seen our backyards wash away in a bad storm. Forests are a very important part of preventing erosion and retaining soil through vegetation. The trees keep large swaths of soil from eroding, while the ferns, grasses, and shrubs retain anything that the trees miss. I, for one, like my dirt to stay in one place, and I think we can all agree erosion isn't fun, especially with the storms we get. I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and I hope that I've made my points clear as to why Old Apex Road Forest is important and should be preserved and protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Registered speakers.
Our first registered speaker is Patrick Downey.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, town members, town council members. Appreciate you taking the time to listen to me. I'm struggling with this issue myself. I'm still kind of going through the motions of what it is I want to get across here. It's emotional for me. My wife and I moved here 5.5 years ago because it was a quaint little town. We could have all the things that a large city offers without the traffic, crowds, and crime. The same reason why many of you probably live here as well. So who am I to say enough is enough? Shouldn't others have the ability to enjoy all that Cary offers? After all, it's a beautiful place. However, I continue to see townhome community after townhome community, and I continue to see apartment complex after apartment complex, but what I don't see is expansion of roads, more stoplights, and an attempt at getting ahead of growth. I use Old Apex Road to go to downtown Cary, to my vet's office, to Abbey Road for a great meal, to the garden center for awesome plants, to the Costco for bulk shopping, to downtown Apex where my church is located, and to get to US 40, which takes me to the toll road, and eventually 1 South, which takes me to work. So as you can see, we're old friends. The specific area we're referring to has no access to a major intersection, so all the traffic will dump onto Old Apex Road, which is a 1-lane road in each direction. This is already a dangerous stretch of the road as it is, not to mention a fire station directly across the street and a very busy garden shop across the street. In my opinion only, I don't feel that this is the most prudent location to add a potential 510 additional vehicles if each apartment has a minimum of 2 cars. We don't need to develop every single open space in Cary. It's okay to say no to developers. I read an article from a website called Home Snacks that reported Cary, North Carolina as the richest city in the U.S. in April of 22. Those factors determined were population, unemployment rate, homeless population, and median income. So surely we don't need the money. We're not hurting for the money here. My question to the council is, can we put a little more attention on the things that matter to the residents of Cary most? Spending time with family, not sitting in traffic, enjoying the amenities and not worrying about finding a parking space or waiting an hour to enjoy a meal, and best of all, the peace of mind knowing that everyone that leaves home actually returns home and not involved in a head-on collision because we're too busy packing the town with as many people as we can. Cary is quickly outgrowing its roads. You know it, and we know it. I've lived in some of the busiest and fastest growing cities in the United States when we talk about traffic, and the ones that fared best were those that had a 5, 10, and 20-year plan to handle its growth. Tonight, you have the opportunity to hit pause with all this commercial and multifamily growth and allow the residents to continue to enjoy this great town. So again, I ask you, the members of the town council, to do the right thing for all of us and hit the pause button. It doesn't mean no or never. Just let us get our affairs in order. Then we can grow the right way. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Our next registered speaker is Jonathan Basside.
Council, Jonathan Bassey, Trademark Properties. Our company, Trademark Properties, is a diverse female-owned commercial real estate firm that has served this area for 37 years. I've been practicing commercial real estate for over 12 years and have been responsible for well over $1 billion in development in the Triangle market with many projects here in Cary. We represent the seller of this land, Keith Ramsey, and he chose Trademark Properties because of our close ties to the community and our ability to help him select a buyer that will deliver a solid product that will fit seamlessly into the neighborhood. Trademark and Keith picked a developer with a history of excellence when choosing Singh. Singh was not the highest bidder, but the highest in quality and architecture. Singh was chosen from a large pool of developers from all over the nation because of their commitment to quality and the community. Most developers build a product to resell it for a profit. Singh has not sold a property since they started developing in the 1970s, which gives them a unique ability to design a higher quality product that fits the legacy characteristics of the town of Cary. Because they are invested in the long term of our community, not the short term. To address concerns and comments from the neighborhood meeting, and to clear up any confusion, I think Avi's already touched on some of these, but Singh is a family business with headquarters in a location here in Cary and personal residence in Cary. They are tied to the community. They employ experts from this area, and most importantly, have continuously proven themselves to build quality products that other developers can't come close to building because they hold on to their products. I strongly encourage neighbors and council to not drive this developer away. You would be taking away from a tax-paying property owner that has shown commitment to the community through his garden supply business for over 20 years. A property that's rightfully being asked to be taken out of a R40 holding zone to a conditioned zoning that is in line with the community plan of 2040. And most importantly, you'll be contributing to affordable housing crisis, as politically driven as that term affordable housing has become. One of my clients is one of the largest affordable housing developers in the state. I've spent countless hours and days studying affordable housing with him, report after report on tax credit housing, the amount the state can award yearly, workforce housing, how AMI, average median income, affects affordability, the cost of construction and economics of what it takes to make a project work, different types of HUD financing, and when you put all the data out there and step back and look at all the pieces of the puzzle, from a state perspective, from a Fed perspective, from a local perspective, one thing is clear: the only way to solve the crisis is to build more housing units. And that starts with infrastructure, which Cary has done a great job of, and then approvals of local municipalities like this for projects like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Thomas Pierre.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm obviously not Tom. I'm Katie Hall. I'm a resident of Triangle Forest, a neighborhood established in the 1960s, just off of Old Apex Road in West Cary. I'm a 15-year resident of Cary and a 14-year employee of the state of North Carolina. Triangle Forest is immediately adjacent to the property proposed for rezoning. I'm speaking for many of our neighbors, and I'll ask at this time that the residents of Triangle Forest stand or raise their hands. My full presentation, along with photos, maps, and references, has been submitted electronically per established rules and guidelines to be part of the public record and for use by your staff, the Planning and Zoning Board, and others. As residents of Triangle Forest, we value the charm and character of our neighborhood. We live here because of the things that make Cary special, despite the Triangle's record growth. Our neighborhood has towering trees, quiet streets, half-acre lots, and is home to abundant wildlife. Our neighborhood represents the epitome of the type of neighborhood our town's community plan seeks to protect. We know and appreciate that our town is growing and fast, and we look forward to what that growth can do for our town and its residents. However, Singh's proposed rezoning case to support RMFCU development with conditions for 3-story and 12 units per acre does not fit most of our town's community plan. North Carolina's zoning statutes were amended in 2005 to strengthen the role of adopted plans in making zoning decisions. The state requires us to inspect proposed rezoning for consistency with our town's community plan. So our group of residents studied Cary's community plan and will make our comments in parallel with it. Under the plans fostering strong neighborhoods, the importance of maintaining neighborhood character is addressed. Triangle Forest hosts large trees, large lots with 1.7 single-family homes per acre, low total mass, and low building-to-land ratios. However, Sing's proposed rezoning and current conditions would allow for 12 multifamily homes, residential units per acre, 6 times that of our neighborhood, and buildings more than 4 times the mass of an average Triangle Forest home. We've submitted photos to show how drastically different driving down Old Apex Road would be with buildings of this size. Our town's 2040 community plan helpfully describes context-sensitive design as in visual harmony with the surrounding context, designed using similar setbacks, building massing, and building heights to ensure compatibility with adjacent homes. Sing's proposal offers no harmony with Triangle Forest, particularly in building massing and building heights, as 3-story buildings would be allowed along Old Apex Road and adjacent to Maryland Circle parcels. Our town's 2040 community plan talks about the importance of protecting and stabilizing Cary's established neighborhoods. The part of Triangle Forest closest to the parcels proposed for rezoning was established in the 1960s. That's about as established as it gets. To us, protection of our neighborhood means not allowing high-density development immediately adjacent. The plan also describes protecting and enhancing established neighborhoods as they age. There's nothing about this proposal that would protect or enhance our neighborhood. While our town's plan does mention new housing options, it specifies that these would be in strategic locations and reiterates that appropriate transitions would be necessary. 255 housing units adjacent to one of the least dense neighborhoods in our town is neither a strategic location nor offers appropriate transition. Furthermore, within a 1-mile radius of the proposed development site for 255 multi-story, multifamily rental units, there are already 484 rental units. These include 224 3-story units in Brampton Moore Apartments, 196 3-story units in Town Station Apartments, and 64 4-story units in Town Station Loft Communities. The latter 2 complexes are located on Old Apex Road. Overall, these neighborhoods already represent the balanced housing mix addressed in the Cary Community Plan. And when my neighbor Tom speaks, he'll continue our neighbor's comments. So I thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
We'll call on Tom.
Hi, nice to see you all. Tom Pira, I live on Maryland Circle, 243. Sing's representatives have argued that our town's plan call for so-called heritage neighborhoods to be revitalized using redevelopment and infill. Triangle Forest was designated as a heritage neighborhood in 2017 under the Cary Community Plan. However, Triangle Forest is a vital, thriving neighborhood with increasing property values, growing families of all ages, and investment in renovations on heritage properties. There is a significant amount of money being poured into the neighborhood, and I would encourage all of you to take a drive in there before you make any decisions. Our town's 2040 plan establishes the policy to preserve and protect the quality and character of existing residential neighborhoods as they mature and as new developments occur nearby. The intent of the policy is described in the plan as improving character, ambiance, property values, desirability, and cohesiveness. The development that Sing intends, if the proposed rezoning were approved, would damage the character of Triangle Forest by deforesting more than half of Triangle Forest constructing buildings of mass that dwarf our homes, packing more than 250 families into 20 acres adjacent to our 2 families per acre neighborhood. And I'd like to point out to you that it's a little bit off script, but we've all been encouraged to look at the product at Cary Parkway and Evans, which by default and nature, it's almost the exact same acreage as what they're proposing here. That's 212 units at a major intersection versus 252 tied in on a daisy chain on the PDD, which does not exist in this location. So it's a de facto wholesale rezoning, which is totally inappropriate for this parcel. Our town's community plan commits us to valuing the protection of nature and the environment, including by redefining development opportunities, regulations, and design standards to protect Cary's natural resources. Triangle Forest and the land seeing requests to be rezoned are home to abundant wildlife. You know, I'm not going to repeat what's already been said by Mr. Wood, I believe. Our town's community plan encourages an adequate supply of housing for young adults and young families and supporting housing affordability, which is Chapter 2, page 20. I won't tell you the line, I'm sure you all know it. All properties that Sing intends to develop if rezoning were approved adjacent to Triangle Forest would be rentals. You know, we've already discussed the amount of the rent that's already been discussed, you know, by someone else. I don't want to be redundant here. But it would not help families coming in to get themselves established into Cary. There also, this development would take up space that could be used for residences, for purchases, and a community offering adequate transition to Triangle Forest. On the north side, Foxdale Run is 10 units on 1.5 acres, which makes it a 6.9 units per acre. The staff report indicates 10 units per acre, which we feel is not accurate. And my regards to you, Aaron. The community plan supports and encourages the development of residential infill sites using designs that complement and transition to adjacent properties and residences. So I'm just going to close this thing out by saying to you that when you look at that mass of product, as it's called, it does not fit with this neighborhood, and it's overwhelming, to say the least. And the only way that you're really going to make a great decision is to go look at what we're talking about here tonight and go into our neighborhood and see what's being proposed. And, you know, it's going to tell the tale. And I hope that you all would take the time to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next registered speaker is Paula King.
Hi, I only thought I had 3 minutes, so I get to talk longer.
Could you state your name for the
My
record?
name is Paula King.
Thank you.
And I'm a 30-year Cary resident. I'm here to urge you not to approve 21 Res 16, which is the rezoning of Old Apex Road. As you're fully aware, this application entails 255 multifamily dwelling units. Since we don't live in a bubble, let's look at what's happening just down the road from this planned development. The town of Apex, thank you, has rezoned the area of Camden Drive, Laura Duncan Road, and North Salem Street in application 21CZ29, and it's called the North Salem PUD. It's an area of Old Apex Road that is opposite Laura Duncan near Laurel Park Elementary. We buy trees, Christmas trees from there. It's for 240 units and 10,000 square feet retail. The North Salem Street PUD application uses the same traffic analysis report, 21-TAR-460, in calculating its traffic impact analysis in its rezoning application, and it's using the same TAR report as this rezoning application. Both applications use the same report without taking into consideration the other development. In other words, double traffic whammy. According to the traffic impact report used by both applications, it should be, quote, "It should be noted that this data was collected prior to the schools being in session and during the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. How can this data be accurate? It can only be worse." So we have 240 units on this side of the intersection of Cary Parkway and Old Apex, and 255 units on the other, for a total of 495 new dwelling units, all impacting Cary Parkway and Old Apex Road. That's somewhere between 500 and 1,000 more cars on the road. The results can only be more traffic. We can't control what Apex does, but we can control what we do. There are so many other issues that I have with this application. No mention of affordable housing. Both my sons looking for apartments in Cary. There's no way they could afford this Griffin, the corner of Cary Parkway and Evans Road. No mention of the impact on school capacity. No environmental impact study done. No mention of any solar energy systems. No mention of tree preservation. No stormwater or drainage studies attached, which is unusual because, as we know, this site has a very large pond. I have so many other issues with this application, but I thought I was running out of time. Over a 30-year period, I've seen many changes to Cary. I know developers want to build with a maximization for profit. After all, it's a business. To state the obvious, it's your job as a town council to place limitations on what they want. You represent our interests and not the interest of the builders. Take a pause and look at how this development fits in our community. Are we better off with the proposal? The answer I hope you see is no, and that you reject this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next registered speaker is Melanie Walker.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name's Melanie Walker. I've lived in Cary with my family for 25 years. I am speaking in opposition to the development on Old Apex Road. This land is a valuable wildlife habitat. It provides a tree canopy with associated cooling effects for the surrounding neighborhoods and increases the air quality of the surrounding area. It is in direct opposition to policies 5 and 9 of the Cary Community Plan, which I thought was created to protect the environment within Cary for its citizens. The staff has included information relative to SERV policies 5, 6, 7, and 9 favourable to the rezoning request in their staff report. Please would you ask the staff to revisit their analysis of SERV policies 5, 6, 7, and 9 and include potential negative impacts as well. In their staff report, these were missing. I am thinking your job is to balance the positive against the negative on all issues. Aside from the environmental considerations, how will this impact traffic? Old Apex Road is one way in each direction, and the impact to traffic will be huge in this area. There is no public transportation here. I also see that the applicant provided a memorandum dated February the 18th, 2022, with reasons for not committing to some of the recommended improvements proposed by the traffic analysis report. I think this is a terrible plan, and if put to a vote to the people of Cary, I believe it would get voted up by a huge majority. Should we not be better stewards of our planet, if not for ourselves and for future generations? I know many other neighbours who are appalled by these plans. I ask you, please reconsider, pause, and do not go ahead with this development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
No additional registered speakers.
I would invite those who have not registered, if you would like to speak. I would invite the first speaker forward. And if it would save time, if the speaker speaking is finishing up, if you would stand over by the stairway so we know we have another speaker if you want to speak after this speaker.
Okay. Hello, I have no notes here, and I've...
Could you give us your name,
listened-
please?
I'm sorry?
Give us your name, please.
Oh, my name is Randall Murray,
Thank you.
and I've lived in Cary for the better part of 25 years, and I am representing the cyclist group through here. I have ridden that corridor through Old Apex for the last probably 25 years on my bike, and it's a snaky little route that has the railroad section right across. I believe used to be a apartment center or some type of condos. I'm alerted to mainly what everyone has said here about the traffic, and I know typically whenever these things are developed, the roads are expanded and accounted for. Still, I actually, when I heard the lady talk about the other complex that's on the other end of Cary Parkway, that also brings an alerting aspect for cyclists. Recently here, just on Wake Med Soccer Park the other night, someone was hit by a car. And so I hope to emphasize that in this planning and provisioning of roads, that the cyclist community is taken into hand so that the safety of those people who traverse either by commuting, exercise, rolling throughout anywhere in Cary, because we are a bicycle-friendly community, that those parameters are taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Teresa LaFond. I live in Oxford Hunt neighborhood. I had not planned to speak tonight. I just wanted to come see what was going on. I won't repeat the other concerns, but my biggest concern was the lack of environmental report associated with this, unless I missed it somewhere. My brief preparation for this showed that the town of Cary does require some kind of environmental preservation. And from what I saw of the corner of Cary Parkway and Evans, which is represented to be an example, this developer comes in and just clear cuts all the trees. In my neighborhood, I've had the benefit of seeing bald eagles fly over our house. They sometimes are in the Brampton Moores apartment and in Bond Park. They live somewhere, and it's probably in the tall trees. I used to also teach English to ESL students at Wake Tech, and I would teach at night, and driving home, I would see many deer and fox crossing the road, coming into my driveway because I didn't get home till 10 o'clock at night from work when these animals are active. We hear barred owls in our neighborhood. They also need the trees to live. I think there's a way to develop properties that can preserve our environment, have a better impact, not take down all the trees. It might not fit the current plan, but that's all I wanted to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Last call. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. There was a lot of information. Well, we're going to open it up to council members for questions, comments, and of course, I have the mic, so I get to go first. There's a lot of information here. First, I want to thank the residents. If this is your first time here, thank you for being here. It really means a lot in the decision-making process that you are here and you're involved and you give us your feedback. It's very, very important. So I want to review everything. If you already know this, please bear with me. First of all, rezoning is about the type of use. And the current use is R40. That is not a use we have in our plan. It is a holding rezoning. And the reason we do that is because if anybody ever wants to develop a property, then they have to come to us. Otherwise, they could develop what the zoning was. So they have to come to us with the R40 rezoning, otherwise they can only put a house on an acre, which might be desirable, but it won't be desirable for the property owner. So that's why there's an R40 zoning, and that's what we're here to decide is about the type of use. So I want to briefly go over the process to make sure everybody understands where we are and what your opportunities to provide feedback are. So first, there was a neighborhood meeting. At that point, council was not involved, at least I wasn't. I didn't know anything about this. And then the week before this public hearing, the staff sends out a link to the council meeting, and on that is a report about this proposal. That's when I first read about this rezoning proposal. So that leads to the public hearing tonight. This is not your only opportunity to speak. Of course, you can call us, you can send emails, but if you want to speak at every council meeting, you can do that under Public Speaks Out. So I want to make sure you know that. If you're watching this and you go, I really wanted to speak in person, you still have that opportunity. So I want to make sure you understand that. And after tonight, this will go to the Planning and Zoning Board. This is a group of appointed citizens, and their job is to talk about how it matches or does not match the Cary Community Plan. And many of our speakers tonight are way ahead of that. You already know about the Cary Community Plan. You've already compared it yourself. Excellent job. Thank you for doing that. But that's going to be their job. It'll be their opinion of whether or not it matches the Cary Community Plan, and that will come back to us at a later date. We're talking months, with their recommendation, with staff recommendation, with all the citizen input, and then we make a decision. So that's where we are as far as the process. Now I want to take a minute to go through some of the things I heard. First of all, take a pause. Any proposal has the right to go through the process. To deny them that right, and I'm going to say something the attorney may or may not like, may put us in legal jeopardy. I don't know. Okay, she gave me the nod, maybe. So it's in everyone's best interest to let a proposal go through the process if that's what they want to do. So no matter how bad you think the proposal is, it's still going to go through the process unless this council changes. So this proposal is going to go through the process and will next go to the Planning and Zoning Board. We heard a lot about the Cary Community Plan. I want to review what the Cary Community Plan is. That was created by citizens and business leaders over a 3-year period and approved in 2017. We're making changes to that now. I think we got environmental stuff coming, affordable housing stuff coming that will be added and fleshing out that Cary Community Plan. So that's what we can expect with the Cary Community Plan. But the Cary Community Plan is what a development has to follow, and that's what the rezoning has to match. And therefore, the chapters we all talked about or heard about tonight, that's why they're so important. And then let's talk about some of the authority we have. I heard several suggestions, let it remain as forest, protect the environment, all these sorts of things. We don't have that authority. A property owner has the right to develop. So we put in place champion tree ordinances. We put in place stream buffers. We put in place buffers between types of uses. Those are the kinds of things we can protect our citizens with. I can tell you we used to have 100-foot stream buffers, and the legislature says, no, you can't do that. It's got to be no more than 50. So that's the battle we're fighting with the legislature constantly. They're constantly taking away, and I know I'm probably stepping on toes, constantly taking away our authority. But we try to create ordinances to protect our citizens. Also, I'll come back to that. We heard a little bit about flooding. I want to, draining a pond, I agree, that's pretty serious. I have to be convinced that that's a good thing. Regardless, let's talk about flooding and stormwater. You're required today, if you're a developer, to match the 100-year storm. Now, you can argue we're having a 100-year storm every day, especially recently, but that's the requirement. And so they have to meet stringent requirements of how they handle the runoff. So I would argue that most places in Cary where you see flooding today are old developments, not new developments. So the new developments actually handle stormwater better. Also heard Why don't you build the roads before growth continues? That's a great idea. It's called adequate public facilities, and we used to have that. And case law says, no, 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 you can't do that. You cannot require something to be built from people that really have no direct impact. So we cannot require roads to be widened and lengthened before growth. We can require some things on frontage. Again, I'll look at the attorney. She's agreeing with me. Okay. I also heard a comment about apartments and townhomes. Again, that goes back to the Cary community plan. We don't propose anything. If we do, it's a park or something like that. These are applicants that come in. 90% of what comes into staff never makes it to here. So that means 90% are getting rejected. So what you're seeing is the best of the best. And the best of the best are apartments and townhomes, sadly. Actually, tonight we saw 2 proposals, I think, that had single-family homes in them. That's refreshing. But yes, apartments and townhomes are coming. And if you think we're going to see the end of that anytime soon, we're not. The pressure to continue to become more and more dense is not only going to be in Cary, will be in every community in the region. So that is something we're constantly having to deal with. Saying no to developers, I wrote this one down because I want you to understand where you are. I talked about the pressure in the future. We can say no, and the developers are required to wait 1 year to come back and let's say get an exemption. During that time, pressure to be more dense, in my opinion, will increase. So be careful what you ask for. It's in everybody's best interest to work for the best outcome now. That doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but try to work for something better. And I'm going to get to, well, I'll get to that now. And so at that point, I would say, developers and citizens, please work together. Please, and if you're saying the developer will not meet with you, then we'll contact the developer so that they will meet with you, because that's very important. Also heard a couple of other things, record growth. Just so you know, the last 15 years, we've been between 1.5% to 2.5%. So we're not seeing record growth. However, it's all occurring in one place. So if you're west of 55, that's all you're seeing. And you're saying, wow, the growth must be going through the roof. It's not. It's like 2.5% this past year. And then lastly, I heard a lot from the developer about the Singh family. A rezoning is tied to the land, not the developer. So this property could be rezoned and then sold. So we cannot take into account the developer, no matter how great they might be in Cary and what their past is. We cannot take that into account. We have to totally ignore that, and in my opinion, I have to look at the worst possible scenario. So those are some of the things I wrote down. I'm going to let my colleagues have a chance in a minute, but...
Are you sure?
Yeah, is it ever going to stop? So here's my take, and this is the opportunity for me to speak to the developers. First of all, the community plan does call for diverse housing options. However, I agree with the citizens, this transition is really abrupt. And I'm not convinced that this intensity of multifamily works on this site. I would like to see something very much less in intensity to be proposed. And that's my feedback. I don't think I can support anything that intense next to large single family. There has to be a transition. And there can be a transition within the rezoning of multifamily. You can go from far away from the residents, from maybe some high density to right next to the residents, low density townhomes. That's just an idea. I don't know if that works either. I'm not saying that that's going to convince me. I'm just saying right now what is proposed would be hard for me to support. So after speaking for 5 hours, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. Ms. Bush, you look like you're teed up and ready to go.
Well, I wanted to ask some questions before
Sure.
we gave comments back. Could you give us a little history about this site? I believe this site has come to council before.
It has. I believe a portion of this site has come forward twice before, both times for townhomes, and both times withdrawn I was not here at that time. One was in 2007 and one was in 2012. So I could not find the specific reason for why they were withdrawn, but we are aware, especially with the 2012 case, there was large neighborhood opposition.
Okay, and those were both withdrawn or denied?
Withdrawn.
Okay,
There was resident opposition as well.
okay, and those were for townhomes, a less intense development that we have here.
That's correct. And they were only for the parcel that makes up the northernmost portion of the assemblage. So with this being a 4-parcel assemblage, I can pull back up our zoning map.
No, I know which one you're talking about.
Okay, yes, sort of that linear one, the northernmost one.
Okay, yeah, that was my only question. Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Or did I take the air out of everything?
I mean, I've got comments.
I have comments.
I have one question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Can I just get the question?
Sure.
Because I don't remember hearing about a heritage property. Does a heritage property get any special protections? That just caught me.
It's a heritage neighborhood designation in the Cary Community Plan.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about. You're talking about the
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
All you.
I had written down a bunch of notes, and then I tried to mark off what the mayor was hitting, so I may or may not be repeating, but I would definitely echo his comments in as far as appreciating everybody's participation in this, both coming in person tonight, whether you spoke or listened, or you are one of the many, many, many emails that we received. Please know that we do read them. They are very helpful. Your participation is helpful to us in helping to make the best decision that we can for the town. All of that said, to your point about growth, I'm just finding the ones I hadn't killed yet. Your growth rate you quoted is correct. Yes, yes, yes. And I appreciate the concerns. It does seem like we are growing leaps and bounds. There's traffic cones all over the place, new projects going up over the place. I get it. But the reality is, you could wall off the town of Cary, put a bubble over it, and not let anybody else new in, and we still need 25% more housing for the people that are having kids and stuff here today, tomorrow. We all want our kids and grandkids to live here. I know I do. So we need more housing, which goes to affordability. I heard a lot of concern that this is not an affordable project, and probably wouldn't be. It'd probably be on the higher end of scale. But the gentleman who spoke early in the blue shirt was 100% correct. There's all kinds of tools in the toolbox to try to address housing affordability. The number one way is to approve more housing. We've even had affordable housing advocate groups come and get before us before and talk about how we need to approve more housing to help fight this crisis. Yes, it may be a higher end product, even though that's not part of what we're considering because we can't consider it. But just the availability of more housing helps to keep other housing that maybe might not be as expensive from escalating in value too fast. I am very familiar with this site. I literally drive by it probably 6 to 8 times a day on some of my test drives, so I apologize to adding to your traffic problems. I've been into the neighborhood. I actually have friends who live on Maryland. I've actually been on the site in question numerous times with the property owner's permission. I appreciate the comments regarding the forest, but unless you've been told you can be there, you're trespassing. Wildlife, not so much. You're correct. This property is going to develop. It's how it develops that matters, and that's what we're considering. We can't say, no, you can't develop, this should stay a forest, or this should stay open space forever. We cannot legally do that. You all can. I mean, if you all got together and bought it, then you can keep it green all for eternity. But if the landowner wants to develop, they have a right to develop, and we have an obligation to hear their request, as the mayor mentioned. let's see, stormwater, the mayor is correct, they would have to meet all current ordinances for the town of Cary. We have the strictest stormwater requirements of most any city in the state, that which the state allows us to have, and we keep finding workarounds the way they tell us we can't, so we keep fighting so that we can. But that said, you're correct, it's not going to develop at R40. There's nothing that develops at R40 in this town. Best case you could hope for would probably be R12, R8, CU, something along those lines. The biggest issue, at the end of the day, at 30,000 foot level, I'm looking at use and density, bottom line. You know, I heard all kinds, well, the staff report didn't have this, or staff report didn't have that. I appreciate it. But at the end of the day, for me, it's the use and the density. I 100% agree on the concern regarding transition. I don't argue that, or I can't say that this may or may not be a acceptable place for multifamily housing. Could be. But to have it go all the way up to a large lot, single family neighborhood doesn't make much sense to me. There's no transition whatsoever. I agree with kind of maybe your suggestion, or could there be, you know, some lower density product transitioning to maybe a more dense development as you get next to Old Apex or something. I don't know. It's not our job to design the applicant's product. It's our job to consider what they've put before us. And probably what's before us right now might have a hard time. To Ms. Bush's question, yes, there was a much lower density project proposed back in the day, you know, and that met similar area resident opposition. That applicant chose to withdraw before, you know, getting a denial. I don't know if they were planning on possibly coming back and within a year and didn't want the, I don't know. But anyways, so it's been proposed for a medium density product. It's now being proposed for a high density product. Everybody wants the trees next to them to stay trees. I appreciate that. I have trees across the street from me that I hope stay trees. But let's see. And this is just a question, and I'm not directing it at this applicant or anybody in particular, maybe more so for our staff or other apartment-type developers who might be listening. But if you're going to propose 250 units, 6 charging stations is frickin' pathetic. I don't know who manages the fights for the electric chargers that are going to occur. For 250 residents fighting for 6, but it's darn sure not going to be the town. And we see this on every one that comes to us. You know, this one will give us 5, this one will give us 8, and somebody makes a concern. Well, they come back. Well, I'll give you 3 more. You know, and it's trust me, I love gasoline engines. I really do. But I also am smart enough to know which way the world's headed. And you can debate all day long who pays for the electricity. Should I pay for you? Blah, 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 whatever. 6 is not enough. I'm not saying the applicant has to go offer us more now. This is something we as a town need to be looking at holistically for any projects and stuff throughout town. How we do that, I don't know, but that struck me out as a little funny. So I do need to learn more about the connection to the north, and I will do that offline. That's not am I going to approve it, not approve it question. So I think I've hit everything. It's hard to tell. And Jenny, can we get a timer thingy for the mayor next time?
Oh, I got a flashing red.
One for Don.
Yeah, maybe each of us.
So, sorry if I rambled.
I have I'm not going to repeat anything that anyone else said.
You lie.
I'm not. But just to mention that, yes, and I agree with, since they seem to be following a particular path. I agree with all of those. I think it's too intense. I think it's too intense to be a transition. That's my opinion. I would also ask all of the residents nearby, I would love to know more about what you didn't like about townhomes, because now, and maybe I'll connect with some of you who sent me some emails, and maybe you weren't the residents, 15 years ago, because this is even more intense than what you didn't like before. Part of what we look at, and what I think Councilmember France said so well, is we look at the use, and if it's not high density and it's not medium density, and it's likely not going to be low density, the only other options that are going to come back to us with is some sort of commercial or whatever. And I don't think my guess is that you wouldn't want that either. So this property owner has a right to develop it as we see fit in the town for something that's harmonious. So I would ask you as neighbors, what you think might be something that you would like to live next to. And I'm guessing that it's, single-family homes of the same size as us, but keep that in mind. As this moves through the process, I would give feedback about the stormwater mitigation. I would love to see, instead of, our standard 100-year stormwater mitigation, I would look for a condition around the 500-year stormwater. We've seen that in recent rezonings. I agree with the EV charges, but I'd like to see more environmental offerings. I mean, this developer is going to be a partner to the town. You need to be a partner when it comes to climate change. So offer something more. Offer solar and composting, and be all in if you want to be a partner to that. And then what I do disagree with, although supply is a part of affordable housing, we have seen most of the new developments coming to us with affordable housing as a condition of some percentage of the units being with a particular AMI, area median income, average median income in the area. So I would like to see that. Giving all of those as feedback, I still think it's too intense. So just giving the developer that feedback as you hear from all the council members.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Yerha.
I'd like to thank all the speakers tonight. It looks like you all did your homework, and I really like that. I have a lot of comments too, some good, some bad, some pro, some con, but there's only one that really matters to me, and that's the stumbling block of the transition, the apparent lack of transition to the properties to the west. The quality and character of the existing neighborhoods is just not being preserved as the community plan wants it to be. 50-foot buffer just doesn't do it for me. Heritage neighborhood allows the applicant to build what they're proposing, and I respect that right of the applicant. I respect the applicant in this case. But just because the applicant has the right to do it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And I think there needs to be more conversation. I agree with just about everything that's been said by all three of you so far, and I hope that you can come to some resolution shortly. I know it's been going on for some time, that will make everyone happy. Something's going to be built here. I don't think 255 apartments, especially with 6 charging stations, is going to be what the end product is. Certainly not from this council. So that's a brief way of.
Thank you, Mr. Yerha. Other comments?
I want to echo what has been said by my fellow council members and mayor, and I agree that we encourage the applicant to consider our neighbors' input in this process. Do consider offer probably townhomes and cut down the number of units. With the current, what you propose, 255, it doesn't seem to be enough support on the council, and encourage the applicant to work with our neighbors and come up with a better plan, and I agree that I would encourage the applicant to offer more environmental conditions for this project, and you are part of the solution, and the town would love to work with you and see what's the best product. I mean, like you suggested, down on 6 EV charging stations, maybe 10%, and I mean, we don't know a magic number, but you know, certainly encourage you to consider to add more charging station there. Jack, you want anything to add?
Well, I've walked that neighborhood. I've been in those backyards. I think I recognize some of the folks out there that let me in their yards. I appreciate that. See a lot of signs about more trees, and I kind of like more trees. So, you know, I think anything we do, I think trees kind of symbolize our desire to make sure that we protect the environment. But I just want to make it clear, because I'm not articulating a lot of things, it's because they've already been said. There's no sense beating it to death. I do want to apologize to the developer. I found out that I did have a call and I did not return it. I'm wrong there, and I'll be glad to talk to you. I did get a call, and so that's just full disclosure. I've been a little bit busy. So again, we go back to transition. When I was out there walking, and you can say the word 50 feet, but, you have to kind of go in somebody's backyard. You have to go up to the property line. Then you have to walk into the size of that buffer. And then you look at that and you say, 3 stories here? You're out of your mind. So it's all going to be a personal disappointment that, I think we created the neighborhood meetings as a way to get ahead of these things. And so what I would like to just add is we had these neighborhood meetings. We have all these concerns brought up, and as I read the information, I'm not going to debate the accuracy of it right now, but as I read the information, very little of those concerns were addressed at the neighborhood meetings. So come on, we have them for a reason, and it's intended to have some give and take. So again, I'm not going to get into, we encourage you to work close with the community, but in my opinion, as far apart as this is in the process, to what we've heard of the concerns, my question would be, you have the right to move it forward to planning and zoning. My suggestion would be, in good faith, you take your pause and work with the community before it moves forward, or really work hard as it's moving forward to make some changes. Because in my opinion, if it stays like this, it's not going to get anywhere with me. That's all I can say.
Any other comments? Okay, just a reminder, you have the right to speak at any meeting, and public speaks out after tonight. We welcome your comments. Please stay involved in the process. Erin Puckett is your contact. She will have all the latest information. So if the applicant offers anything, makes any changes, she's the one who will have the latest information, so she is the best one to contact. And of course, I'm not trying to blow you off. You can contact me anytime. I'd be glad to hear your comments and glad to hear your opinions. So having said that, right now this is scheduled to go to our Planning and Zoning Board. That's at least a month or so away, and then it will come back to us a month or so after that. So we've got time, and hopefully we'll see some changes. Thank you, Ms. Puckett, and thank you again for attending and speaking tonight. All right, we will move to discussion. And our first discussion item is 21 REZ08 Terraces at West Cary. Oh, Ms. Puckett's up again. We'll give the report, and council may take action on this one. Ms. Puckett.
Couldn't get rid of me quite that fast. This is a request to rezone just under 12 acres located at the northwest corner of Morrisville Parkway and NC 55 Highway. You may recall that you held a public hearing for this request in August of last year. This request was then scheduled for final decision at your March 24th meeting, but was removed from the agenda at the applicant's request. The site is made up of 3 parcels, all with different zoning. The vacant parcel along NC 55 is zoned R40, while the parcels fronting Morrisville Parkway are currently zoned office research and development and office and institutional. And there is an existing landscaping business on those two properties. And the applicant proposes to rezone the property to transitional residential conditional use. The applicant has offered the following conditions: limiting the uses to townhouses and neighborhood recreation, limiting the units to a maximum of 55, or about 4.6 units per acre. This has been reduced since the public hearing from the 60 units that were initially proposed. Providing a minimum of 4,800 square feet of community gathering space, that's double the LDO requirement. Providing private rooftop areas for each unit, which will be a minimum of 250 square feet in order to accommodate seating or other amenities. Wiring garages for all units to 60 amps in order to make them electric vehicle charging ready. Ensuring no townhouse units will be built in the northernmost portion of the site as shown on this map in red. Providing a 20-foot wide type A buffer along the shared property lines with Blakely. This is an increase to the 10 to 15-foot wide buffer that would otherwise be required by the LDO, since the Blakely development provided more than their half of the required perimeter buffer. This condition was also added since the public hearing. And since the case was initially scheduled for final decision in March, but removed from that agenda, the applicant has added an architectural condition to prohibit vinyl siding and include at least 2 different materials in each building facade, such as fiber cement siding, brick or stone veneer, or several other options. I also wanted to note that the applicant offered a condition committing to 2-car garages for all units prior to the Planning and Zoning Board meeting, but that condition has since been removed. At the meeting, the applicant noted they intended to fulfill the condition by providing tandem garages where vehicles are parked front to back. But as Cary does not permit parking which requires the moving of another vehicle to access the space, staff have always enforced 2-car garages as those being wide enough for 2 cars parked side by side. So following a discussion with staff about this requirement, the applicant removed the condition. Since the condition was not provided before the public hearing, the applicant is permitted to remove the condition from consideration. We note that removal of this condition does not change the parking that will be required for development of townhouses at this location, nor did staff consider the change substantive to our analysis of the case. And more details regarding that change were provided in your staff report. Staff's findings for consistency with the Imagine Cary Community Plan and approval of the request. We found that the request supports the LIVE policy of providing a unique housing type in this area with the provision of townhomes. Townhomes in a mixed neighborhood near RTP are also consistent with the work chapter and the future growth framework designation of mixed neighborhood. The shape chapter also supports infill development and the smaller, higher density residential use between the mixed residential neighborhood to the west and north and the intersection of 2 thoroughfares appears to be a good use transition. At their January meeting, the Planning and Zoning Board found the request consistent with the Imagine Cary Community Plan by a vote of 7-1. Planning and Zoning Board Chair Stephen Crutchfield has submitted the following written summary, which I will read into the record. The vote was 7-1 in favor of the application. The one no vote from a board member was based on his feeling that this development was not a good fit for these parcels. He felt that fronting Highway 55 called for a different use that would be more compatible with the adjoining neighborhood. The majority of the board felt that this would be a good transition for the adjoining neighborhood and much better than potential commercial businesses that could be open long hours with noise and lighting. Since the Planning and Zoning Board, the 2-car garage condition was removed, as previously noted. And after the case was initially scheduled for final decision in March and subsequently removed, the applicant also added the previously mentioned architectural condition, giving some assurance to the building materials. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Puckett. I can say from my point of view, I think we had a lot of opposition initially on this, didn't we? And to have the residents work with the applicant, and then they sent us a petition supporting something. I don't ever remember getting a petition supporting something. was always against something, so that was pretty fascinating. And then really didn't hear any opposition after that. So that seemed like a win-win to me, and I'm so glad that they all worked together to make that happen. So I'm totally in support of what the residents and the developer propose. Other comments, questions?
Yeah, I went to the site and met with the residents in this neighborhood, and I'm glad they were able to work with the applicant. The applicant responded to our neighbors' concerns, and we got a better product. And I really appreciate the effort that this applicant, is proposing that the solar panel would become part of the option for new constructions. I think this is really, I think it's new pioneering effort, and I would love to see more of that in Cary. So I'm supportive of this project. I think it's great.
Any other comments? Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve 21 REZ08 and that we adopt the following documents attached to the online agenda, which include the statement of consistency for 21 REZ08 and the rezoning ordinance 21 REZ08.
There's
I'll
a-
second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Puckett.
Thank you.
Our last discussion item is the renaming of White Oak Park. And I, along with Mayor Pro Tem France, asked for this item to be on the agenda. Mr. Yerha will be enjoying his retirement as he moves forward in the coming days. And if you don't know, Mr. Yerha has spent decades involved with the town, and 10 years involved with the town council. He was first appointed to council 10 years ago through a long process where we interviewed a lot of people. And if I remember correctly, to me, I remember feeling that he was head and shoulders above the rest. That's how impressive you were, and you didn't let us down. You kept us impressed the entire time. And another thing I'll disclose is I talked to council members the Monday before Thursday council meeting, and he's the first guy I call because inevitably I didn't read something as well as he did. And he filled in the blanks for me. So now I've got to put on my big boy pants and do a better job. Mr. Yerha, thank you for all that you've done for this town, and I think naming White Oak Park after you is the least we could do for all you've offered this town. And I just want to thank you personally for everything that you've done to this point. I know you've got another meeting after this, and I know you've got some more to say tonight, but thank you, and well-deserved. Mr. France.
Agree 100%. I think I first met Ed 22 years ago or so on the Planning and Zoning Board. I remember sitting there thinking this guy running the meeting was like one of the smartest guys I ever saw. So, but anyways, you've always been very thoughtful, deliberate, and fair, and kind. You've listened. I know you've helped me be a better council member, so I don't want to say too much because I think we're going to say some more during the
Yeah, we are.
meeting. But it's been a pleasure to serve with you for decades. And I agree, it's not the least we could do. We could really cheap out if we wanted to. But it's definitely fitting, and you're very much deserving.
Thank you, Don.
Mr. Yerha, have anything to say?
Well, I have to first make sure you're going to vote for it.
Oh, yeah, I guess we got to do that. All right.
Thank you. Have
Any
the motion
comments
to fail.
before? Should we get a motion on the table?
You're right. Let's put a motion there. I'd make a motion. We rename the White Oak Park the Yerha Park.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to.
Did you vote? Say you didn't vote.
So, just for the record, Mr. Yerha didn't say aye or nay.
No, he didn't.
But by not saying that, he voted aye, so it's a
Yes.
unanimous vote.
That's right.
Just in case you're wondering.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Yerha.
Thank you very much. It's a weird feeling. I'm both honored and humbled at the same time. It was a very weird feeling to look at the agenda and seeing Ed Yerha Park in writing, because we've talked about this for the last week or two. It's not a total surprise to me, in other words, tonight. But to actually see it in writing was a very, very weird feeling. The staff report mentions my contributions to the town. I got to mention myself that none of those contributions would be possible without the rest of you, without my council friends, and without the support of our town staff, our world-class town staff, Sean and everyone else. So thank you very, very much. Speaking of Sean, he called me, I guess, a couple of weeks ago and told me that this was in the works and was going to be happening. And he asked me how I would like my name represented on the sign, because it could be, Ed Yerha or Edward Yerha. He wanted to know what I thought. And I told him I would like the Honorable Edward Alfred Yerha, Esquire, Park and Recreation Area.
Not your worship? Your worship?
Oh,
Your
no, that's
worship.
you.
Oh, yeah.
You're the worship. But Karen Mills said that to purchase a sign that large would blow the budget, and she didn't want that happening on her last year here. So we settled on just Ed Yerha, which is fine. The park means a lot to me. It has meant a lot to me. It's right near my house. Carolyn and I walk a couple miles, weather permitting, every morning, and we start in the park and we end it in park. We played pickleball in the park. Our grandson loved the children's playground until he grew out of it. So to have one's name attached to it is very meaningful. Actually, to have your name attached to any part of our world-class parks and recreation system is a wonderful way to top off a long and fulfilling career. So I am more than grateful, and I thank you very much, and we'll talk a little bit more about things next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. What a way to end the meeting. We have no other business this evening, no closed session, so I declare this meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.